much of which we're going to share with you today. I'm delighted to be leading this call on behalf of our friends and colleagues at Ovum. Today we're going to be joined by two Ovum analysts, and we have some analysis from actually three members of the team that cover this space. First, we're going to hear from Tim Banting, who's Principal Analyst, Workspace Services. Tim moderated and led one of the sessions at Enterprise Connect, and in fact, it had one of our largest attendances of any breakout session. Then we'll hear from Ken Landeline, who's Principal Analyst in Customer Engagement. Ken will be presenting some material that he developed along with Mila D'Antonio, who is unable to join us on the call, but is another analyst with Ovum who attended the show, who did some presentations on the show floor, and has come up with some analysis on the customer engagement side of things at the show. We'll hear from Tim and Ken for about the next half hour, 40 minutes. Then we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. So we encourage you, please do take advantage of the Q&A function. Send in your questions. My colleague Beth Schultz, who's my program co-chair, is going to join us during the Q&A time. She'll be going through your questions now and getting ready to pose those to Tim and Ken during Q&A. And so certainly do. These are some terrific analysts who I think have got some really interesting and compelling things to say about what they saw last week. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Tim Banting.
Thank you very much, Eric. In terms of those of you that don't fully understand Ovum, we're a company of about 150 analysts strong. We look at digital workplaces and customer experience, and our aim is to deliver research and meaningful insights to our clients. We sit under the broader umbrella of Informa Tech. As well as delivering research insights, we also develop events and exhibitions for the international technology community. So this is where Enterprise Connect fits into our organization, alongside events such as Black Hat, London Tech Week, and also Internet of Things World. So I'm going to kick off our session today talking about what I saw from Enterprise Connect in terms of unified communications and collaboration. For me, the real big insight was the dominant theme around AI. And although it stands for artificial intelligence, I'll be talking around the reasons why I think it stands for artificially inflated rather than actionable insights. And that really starts with the sort of space it takes in terms of technology adoption. If we look at what's happening in communications and collaboration, there's emerging value, there's value that is deliverable today, and there's value that was delivered yesterday. And really, when we look at things such as digital transformation, it really is a mix of strategy, culture, and leadership, and delivering business outcomes. Technology is by and large the easy part. And what we found was over the next 3 years, we sort of introduced the fact that technology is on a bell curve, and the big shifts in this market really come as a result of the consumerization of IT. So many users in organizations have access to technology and services in their private lives, at home and at schools and universities, that are by and large better than some of the technology that we get at work. And what this has done is sort of shifted workplace expectations. And employees are really looking at the apps and services that are easy to use, easy to install, and ubiquitous across devices, and focus by and large on improving team and employee productivity, personal productivity. So looking at that bell curve, if we then map the sorts of areas that the technology triggers that we saw at Enterprise Connect, and the ones really that I wanted to highlight here are the ones highlighted in purple: the vertical apps, AI, team collaboration, and cloud-based suites. On the far right-hand side of this bell curve, delivering technology from yesterday are the red dots, and these by and large are premise-based unified communications, conferencing, and PBXs. Basically, what we have seen is a big shift towards the adoption of cloud-based services, predominantly team collaboration, and the decline in big single digits and sometimes double digits reported by the vendors in premise-based equipment. What is happening really, by and large, is overhanging the market. There's not too much focus on these premise-based deployments. It's all around cloud, and where people are a bit technology adverse or risk adverse, they're leveraging hybrid, where they can interconnect and augment team collaboration solutions and cloud-based solutions with their premise-based equipment. So cloud is really ramping up very quickly, and it was a very strong focus at Enterprise Connect. And what we are seeing predominantly is with cloud-based suites being the way in which enterprises will procure. We're seeing more of a decline in best-of-breed technology and towards cloud-based suites. Well, why? Why is that happening? Enterprises haven't got the resources or indeed the money to subscribe to multiple services, and the administration and management is far easier in an integrative suite rather than having different relationships with different vendors or indeed different partners. So by and large, this is the likes of Microsoft Office 365, Google G Suite, Cisco FlexPlan, and those sorts of suites. Hybrid, as I said, is sort of an area where vendors are concentrating their efforts. It didn't really come to the fore at Enterprise Connect. However, the sort of areas in purple certainly did. An area that was dominant was artificial intelligence, AI. It seemed to propagate throughout Enterprise Connect. A lot of the keynotes, a lot of the speaking engagements all focused on AI. We'll come back to that in a little while, but by and large, it really wasn't, there wasn't any evidence of how that improves productivity in the enterprise in keynote discussions from the likes of Google, Microsoft, and Cisco. And this slide really comes from our Workspace Services survey. And this slide hasn't really changed much over the last 3 years. AI is really the driving force to improve employee productivity with most of our respondents, and this is a global survey going out to thousands of organizations. The predominant reason, or the predominant sort of reason why people adopt AI is to improve employee productivity. However, at the show, and Ken will be covering this later, we can really see the driving force in the contact center space, predominantly around bots and agent assist. So, as I said, most of the employee AI discussions were tenuous at best, and they didn't really get towards providing a way in which enterprises can gain actionable insights. We did see on the keynote from Cisco AI being used in terms of intelligently framing participants, so that helps in the employee or end user experience, and also counting the number of people in the room. However, what we didn't see was the way in which those counting the number of people in the room can lead to insights. So how can facilities managers reconfigure the conferencing space to cater for huddle rooms? We didn't sort of see that as evidence. We also heard about, pardon the pun, ways in which people can navigate solutions using their voice. So essentially a Siri or a Google for Business, for example, hey WebEx, start my meeting, or hey WebEx, call John Smith. So AI has got a long way to go in terms of improving employee productivity. Some notable differences really were Microsoft, where they demonstrated things like real-time captioning. However, what they didn't do was stress the fact that this originated from the cognitive services that they developed in Azure. So in terms of looking at the highlights, the battle for best of suite is really very much a battle for mindshare. And this was really Amy Chang, Senior Vice President and General Manager for Cisco Collaboration, laying out her vision for cognitive collaboration. And Microsoft's General Manager, Laurie Wright, who set out Microsoft's stall 2 years ago, previously at Enterprise Connect, around intelligent communications. Amy's vision was really one of augmenting online meetings with meaningful information and background information on people and companies. The whole idea here was when you're on a WebEx meeting, your attendee list will be augmented by salient points and information pertaining to that person or that particular company. Microsoft's intelligent communications was really around immersive experiences to boost productivity, and they demonstrated a number of really interesting features that are coming soon. One was around digitizing physical whiteboards. The other was around real-time captioning of video calls, and also real-time translation services. And then also around choosing background images on video calls so that you didn't get in embarrassing situations where people walked into the room while you were trying to present. You could actually have a customized background to choose from. The other key area was about private chat within Teams. So there was a lot of incremental functionality coming from Teams. After speaking to a number of customers, while that is very welcome, a number of the IT people that I spoke to from large customer bases were turning around and saying that there is sometimes far too much change coming from Microsoft. So one point to note here is that that change has to be managed. You can't just overnight give all these new features to your end users and expect them to suddenly come up to speed very quickly. Some IT directors were saying that the rate of change and pace of change is daunting, not only for them, but also for their end users. Another key area was around integration. Now, integration is a highly sought after customer requirement, and it hasn't really been addressed by vendors. Maybe it's not in the vendors' interests as they look to maximize wallet share with best of suite solutions, but there was a pent-up frustration of people not being able to, for example, chat between Slack and Microsoft Teams and WebEx Teams, or not being able to use specific hardware that's been designed for, say, Microsoft and leveraging that in a WebEx environment. So there's still a lot of room for integration, and I think that vendors will be dragged kicking and screaming into this sort of new realm where they realize that they have to interoperate with everyone. And I think that that came across on a number of panel discussions. Interestingly, although it's a battle for best of suite, large enterprises sort of admitted by and large that they have a mix of applications and services. You know, some of them might have WebEx, a mix of Microsoft, some Slack, some Zoom, and they're likely to continue to support a mixed estate until integration becomes, before integration comes about. There are other areas as well. Microsoft spoke about the verticalization of their applications. So within Microsoft Teams, there is the ability for people to leverage very bespoke Microsoft Team developments around retail, for example, where you might want to change shift patterns, and also in healthcare, where you might want to have integration with medical records. And this, to me, seems to be on a collision course with communications platforms as a service, or CPaaS. We saw Ribbon working in conjunction with AT&T to have an app store so that developers can customize and be able to essentially create their own vertical applications for specific use cases. So I feel that this verticalization and CPaaS are market adjacencies that are on a collision course. And we also saw the likes of Bandwidth talking about CPaaS and their enterprise-grade voice capabilities and E911 capabilities that they can provide as a CPaaS offering and a back-end infrastructure that developers don't have to worry about because that's taken care of. AI, as I said, lots of talk, however, artificially inflated in terms of enterprise productivity and team productivity. There is evidence from the likes of Microsoft and Cisco making headway in that space, but by and large, it's yet to cross the chasm. It's not providing actionable insights. So on that note, I'd like to hand back to you, Eric. Thank you very much.
Let me get myself off mute. Thanks, Tim, very much. And we've got some questions coming in, and I encourage everybody to send those as you come based on what Tim had to say. And now I'll turn it over to actually Ken Landeline from Ovum, who will talk about we had our customer experience, which is also our contact center track, was the biggest it's ever been at Enterprise Connect. We had more sessions than ever. We had it on the main stage for the first time. I go back with the show a long time, and the contact center used to be essentially almost a niche portion of the content, and now it's something that I think all of our enterprise audience is really engaged with and making significant moves in. So, Ken, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you saw and where things are going?
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. Yeah, I go back with Enterprise Connect quite a few years myself. I remember when it was called VoiceCon. So it's been growing dramatically. In the past couple of years, we have seen a shift to the customer experience, contact centers, et cetera. I'm going to present a few slides that Mila put together for us. And the theme of her slides is really a paradigm shift you see as the CX driver. Tim, if you go to the next slide, I don't have control of the slides here, but that'd be great. So the one that says top contact center challenges. So legacy communications solutions tend to lack the ability to support seamless, connected, informed, and efficient customer experiences, which today may take place across multiple channels. When inbound and outbound voice applications don't integrate with internet applications such as real-time chat, web collab, email, social media, agents can't really conduct multiple interactions simultaneously using customer-preferred formats. This presents as much of a hit to customer satisfaction as it does to agent productivity, which leads to the fact that the agents can't access information. Agents struggle to get real-time customer information. Outdated communication infrastructures don't foster seamless and real-time communications. And we're not able to deliver connected, intelligent customer engagement across the enterprise channels. So the issues of information inaccessibility, outdated communication, disconnected experiences take a toll on the contact center today. So we do really believe that the merger of UC, Unified Communications, and customer experience has really got to come together to perfect the world of customer solutions. Tim, next slide, please. So the benefits of UC-enabled contact centers, as you can probably imagine, is that it allows for much more intelligent call routing, network to desktop computer telephony integration is improved, and multi-channel contact management over IP infrastructures becomes available to us. Next slide, Tim. Here we see the unified communication and contact centers integrating, and this has begun already on the vendor side. We see the photographs here indicate Avaya acquired Spoken a little while ago. Vonage acquired News Voice Media late last year. Cisco acquired BroadSoft, which is a cloud contact center provider. All of these vendors were, previous to this, doing UC, Unified Communications, but now they've jumped into the contact center space and plan in the future to merge these two together. And I think, although I feel that vendors are sort of ahead of the end users in this space of putting the two together, it could be another 2 or 3 years before we see the high level of expectation on the user side, end users wanting to put these things together. And next slide, please. So the newcomers at Enterprise Connect launched unified communication platforms. It was evident that many new products were coming out, and prior to Enterprise Connect, Mila and I were briefed on by some vendors that are listed here, but the CPaaS, the UCaaS, CCaaS integrate into one platform, which is really building a new business area called business communication platforms. So A company like Sharpen's platform is built to help employees and customers communicate and collaborate. Sharpen is a new company up in the Indianapolis area. Edify platform unifies entire workforces on a common platform to enable seamless transitions. When I saw Edify's presentation at Enterprise Connect and being pre-briefed on it, appeared to me this was sort of the contact center of the future, in that it showed not just contact center agents, but other employees in the enterprise getting involved in handing messages back and forth, getting the proper person to answer a customer's question on the line, etc. And then 3O's CCAS platform was born in the cloud and offers all AI, digital, and voice for greater agility in the business communications platform space. Next slide, Tim, please. The UC contact centers extend data sources for intelligent routing and decision making. And I'll talk about a little bit this later in a few of my slides, but agents that gain access to better customer insights when we put together various things in the organization like customer billing, past transactions, a history of transactions with these customers, previous inquiries that have come in, all melded together in relevant customer interactions that are going to help the next call. So involving the entire enterprise of various databases, taking advantage of big data, as we hope to more in the future, really gives us a new entree into serving customers better and more proficiently, et cetera. Next slide, Tim. So enabling a truly omnichannel customer experience, we get connected customer experiences, consistency of user experiences, intelligent, personalized interactions, and higher conversion rates. Conversion rates meaning turning calls into sales and more revenue, obviously. So just in a summary slide, the following slide, Tim, shows an Ovum prediction that over the next 5 years, 25 to 35% of contact center interactions could be fully automated and handled without the involvement of a live agent, which plays very nicely into my next slide, Tim, if you go forward. Well, finally, a word on AI, that AI will propel improvements in customer care. That was Mila's closing slide. So more efficient handling of customer calls frees up agents to focus on higher valued tasks, and customer inquiries get answered much more quickly. And then, Tim, if we go to my lead-in slide, my observations in customer engagement specifically in the contact center. And then slide 19, Tim, is my first graphic, which shows artificial intelligence. The initial focus will be on agent augmentation. The reason I say this is based on a couple of research pieces I did late last year, one including a forecast of live agents. And basically these were done to answer questions that were coming in, inquiries from end-user clients, such as, is the voice channel dead? Should I slow down on hiring agents? Can I cut agents 10% going into the future with all the AI that's coming into the marketplace? So I began with the annual Ovum forecast of agent seats around the world. We looked over 39 countries, rolled up into 5 regions, and rolled up into a world count. And what you see here on the graphic going from 2016 to 2022 is the projected number of agent seats globally. So 9.9 million in 2016, growing to 10.1 million in 2022. Really what's significant on this chart is the fact that agent seats are growing at least through the year 2021, where there's a plateau. And the reason for this is obviously, although I show on the right side that the overall worldwide compound average growth rate for agent seats is only grown plus 0.3% on an annual basis through that 5-6 year period. There are other regions, that's in general in total, but in some regions of the world, South America, Southeast Asia, agents are growing 2.5% over that same time period. The more developed nations and contact center terminology anyway, North America, Western Europe, has actually seeing negative growth right now, slight negative growth in 0.1%, 0.2% over the next 5 or 6 years. But overall, globally, it's plus 0.3%. The arrows I show on this chart sort of indicate what my hypothesis was going into this, and it really is proven by the forecast itself, as well as many conversations I had at Enterprise Connect this year with vendors and end users. Most people will agree, and it ties into the numbers that we show here in our forecast, that the early part of artificial intelligence really is going to be focused on agent augmentation, making the agent's life better. And actually, that was one of our 2019 trends in our Ovum trend forecast back last September, October timeframe, that agent support was going to be a real focus on the part of the vendors as well as the part of the end user or enterprises in the customer engagement world. So agent augmentation, I mean, things like sending the right screen pop to the agent at the right time, giving them the answer more quickly than in the past. Artificial intelligence has a great opportunity to assist agents, which does a couple things. It makes the agent happier, it makes the customer happier, and it sort of puts a curb on agent attrition. Most of us know that agents get very tired of answering that call, like, where's the closest ATM machine to the zip code? This is stuff that can be done by artificial intelligence. That low-hanging fruit will definitely go to artificial intelligence, even in the early years. But it won't be until 2021, 2022. We actually see a shrinkage in agents because of artificial intelligence. So answering the question that I get very often, is the voice channel dead? The answer to that is an adamant no. The voice channel is going to change. Agents are going to change. We're going to see maybe a fewer calls going to live agents, but each of those calls will be longer in number of minutes because those agents will be taking the more complex calls, the calls that need empathy, the security questions, billing questions where they need some explanation, some technology questions, et cetera. So we'll see maybe a shrinking number of calls into live agents, but probably total minutes will stay level or grow a little bit going forward. Tim, the next slide, please, which is cloud marketing platforms will merge. Another trend I saw in Enterprise Connect this year and anticipated, I think we all anticipated for some time, that CRM and contact centers will be melding together. We probably won't have separate systems running these into the future. But something new at Enterprise Connect this year, I talked to several marketing platform companies, and I find that the concept that these will be merging also into one real cloud platform, melding CRM, marketing platforms, and contact center switching itself, will really develop a cloud solution that it will once and for all get us to a real-time 360-degree customer view. And the reason for that is CRM does a great job in giving us historical data, a little bit slower less capable of giving us proactive looks or future looks. But marketing platforms that track customers and users in real time, which the marketing platform people are doing. We're talking about marketing platforms, and many large companies have marketing platforms, Adobe, Teradata, Oracle, Salesforce, some other companies like Marketo, Selligent are coming out with marketing or providing marketing platforms that are capable of assisting us with better customer service. But really, I think the future will see these melding together into a consolidated cloud platform. We finally will get that true 360 degree of the customer because we'll be able to track customers real time, know where they are, number one, physically, be able to be proactive in sending out messages to customers in anticipation of getting them to a certain store at a certain time. We see these marketing platforms already tracking customers, tracking their buying habits. I don't know if you noticed it as I did when we started doing retail in a big way on websites. You know, the company like eBay, Amazon, they did a much better job than contact centers doing being proactive. I can guarantee you when I ordered flowers for my anniversary with my wife in the July time frame, next year in June, I got a reminder that my anniversary was coming up. And cloud platforms and online retail websites were very good at doing that, tracking what you did last year, asking if you want to repeat it, and trying to upsell you for this year. We've had very little of that in the contact center space, but I guess merging marketing platforms with CRM data and getting it into the contact center, into the agent's hands, being able to be much more proactive with end users is going to change the world going forward. I'm looking forward to that kind of increase in customer engagement in the future. Next slide, please, Tim, which will be, I did want to mention, although there were many announcements, there weren't a whole lot of announcements or as many from contact center providers this year. This is not all inclusive, but I wanted to show the noteworthy enterprise contact contact center announcements this year. Number one, kind of a bit surprising, took me, didn't expect it, I should say, but TalkDesk announced the Workforce Management Program. It was homegrown. TalkDesk has been doing a lot of hiring lately. Those of you that know them, they've been around almost 10 years. They came out with their own contact center. Been under the radar for a while, but in the past 2 years, they did the announcement of their contact center last year at Enterprise Connect. And this year they announced this product, as they've had many announcements during the year. But this one is really about workforce management, something being pulled through by their customers, saying they needed this, and they wanted a unified one with TalkDesk's contact center. So TalkDesk hired people from other well-known workforce management companies, developed this internally, and it has smart forecasting, perpetual reforecasting. When changes are made, it's automatically reforcing agents' work time schedules, et cetera, staffing assist, intraday assist, and surge pay to pay people extra for surge times in the environment when peak calls come in, et cetera. So it's a pretty in-depth workforce management, and I can tell you from plans that Workforce shared for us, there's a lot more coming in new announcements from them in the coming years, so look forward to that. Going down to Genesis, Genesis really made presentations that honed in on something they had announced previously a year or so ago, that they were going to start packaging their cloud offerings into use cases, and they detailed for us at Enterprise Connect 5 major use cases. Pure Bridge, which can be used to transition away from outdated infrastructure into the cloud. Cloud for mid-size, accelerating business results for SMB, mid-size businesses with an advanced customer engagement platform. Digital service, getting people into the digital service world with service automation. Digital sales, prospect conversion and customer acquisition, customer case, and automation at work, predictive performance, workforce enhancement. Amazon Connect, which made their major contact center announcement, named Amazon Connect 2 years ago at Enterprise Connect, announced a lot of AI deployments in a few clicks with a single user's interface. It included AI-powered speech analytics, AI-enabled Amazon Transcribe, Amazon Comprehend, which measures sentiment, sarcasm, feelings, and looks for certain triggers in the conversation. Amazon Translate, now translating conversations to 21 languages, which showed a demonstration of that on an on-stage keynote presentation, and it was very slick. Also, word clouds, you can envision those word cloud screens showing a supervisor what's being used most in the conversations, whether it be cancel service, sell more, sell me something else, new feature, functionality requests, et cetera, which can prompt the contact center manager to make changes with his teams, et cetera. And also machine learning, which allows systems to learn constantly as we take more and more calls, which allows for outreach marketing that I was talking about before, being much more proactive in the marketplace. And then 5.9 reiterated their spring release of 2019, new in-region voice points of presence in Ireland and Sao Paulo, additional integrations for leading UC providers, enhanced CRM integrations with Salesforce, MS Dynamics, and Oracle, new gamification application, gamification for agents, helping them compete with one another, showing results and improving results, native WebRTC application, and significant increase in agent seat capacity as 5.9 moves up channel into the larger enterprises. Okay, next slide, please, Tim. Okay, I put together some interesting contact center companies to watch. A couple of these were mentioned earlier in the previous slides: Sharpen, Edify, and Threo we talked about. Threo is an interesting company to me for a number of reasons. new contact center offering digital voice and AI empowers agents to improve customer experience with 3O's AI-driven situation routing, does journey management, agent gamification. What's most interesting is the 5 founders of this company have a tremendous amount of experience in startups. All 5 of them work together at a company called Telephony at Work. You may remember from 11, 12 years ago when Telephony at Work was acquired by Oracle, making an attempt to get into the contact center business. It was a leading-edge contact center, IP-based contact center that was used to host service providers, host contact centers for end users, et cetera. A very ahead of its time kind of solution. And all of these 5 starters of 3O, I should say the top 3 people, they named it after themselves, 3O, comes from the 3 of them. People like Edwin Margulies, who I've known for many years and was one of the founders and is now CEO of Telephony at Work, is now the CEO of 3O, followed by Ran Zerger, CTO, and Rose Sinekrop, COO, all with previous experience. And the top 5 people at 3O have an average of 4 startups in their background, successful startups. So I think that's a company that you should be watching going forward. Sharpen, very interesting demonstration they did for us at the Enterprise Connect. It was their proprietary agent experience score, AXS as they call it, which tracks agents' performance very fine-tuned. And on a scale of 1 to 5, you can look at agents, or the enterprise supervisor in the contact center can look at agents and see how they're performing on a real-time basis, which is kind of interesting because you can look at Sally is ranking in at 2.8, Bill's doing 4.8, he's doing something right. Focus in on the winners in the situation and actually scoring these people in real time as they're going through conversations to see how they're doing, allowing the contact center manager to drive coaching opportunities for agents that are not doing well in areas. And this is all driven by AI. Very exciting thing to watch. Saw some real demos of it, and I think that's going to be a newfound tool for managers that are very interested in tracking their agents and getting them trained properly and doing some micro lessons, sending them micro lessons online to the agents in their downtime to talk about how they can improve their service, et cetera. Edify, on the bottom of the list here, Cloud UC Contact Center Platform unifies entire workforces, not just contact centers, but workforces on a common worldwide platform to enable seamless transitions for calls. Leads with contact center, that's their first thing they sell, but they're adding on UC as quickly as they can as people need it. Their sweet spot is 550 to 2,000 users. They charge $7 per user per day, with the first 5 users being free. This is for the full-blown UC-CC application. First 5 users being free forever, so anybody with 5 users can join up and keep going with it and use it as long as they want, but the hope is that they'll grow into a bigger system. And they see themselves as a global tech platform, and they see themselves competing with people like Twilio, who just got into the contact center space a year or so back. Most surprising to me was the one in the middle here, VoiceSense. This is a speech analytics on steroids. That's my quote, what I said to them when I saw it. But as you know, most of us are familiar with speech analytics. We're used to speech analytics looking at customers' tone in their voice, when they get angry, when they're happy, and reporting that on an AI kind of basis into the system so that managers and agents can track this. But what VoiceSense is doing is taking this one step further. They say by tracking 240 voice characteristic markers in a conversation for a minimum of 45 seconds, they're able to look at people's personalities, not just their happiness, their anger, their sarcasm, et cetera. But to give you an example that they use, they're working with a bank who, when someone calls in to take a loan out, they track their voice, and during that conversation, the agent can get a score of that person's personality, saying what's their probability of them not completing this and defaulting on that loan would be. It's a 30% chance this person will default on this loan based on what they're reading in their voice characteristics. And this is based on hundreds of thousands of previous phone calls and recording of voices that start showing personality in person and their ability to follow through with promises, their honesty, etc. So I think that's a company to watch. I'm very excited about that. I have set up a one-on-one with them post-show, so probably sometime next week be talking to them about proof points that they can show me this really works. If it really works, it could be changing to our industry. Next slide, Tim. Okay, so in summary, Enterprise Connect 2019 customer engagement trends. Artificial intelligence continues as the leading topic of discussion. In my mind, it started last year at Enterprise Connect. It's definitely not lost any power going this year. It's still the tip of everyone's tongue. Every booth you went to was talking about AI. AI's initial effect will be to support and augment agent processes and performances. It won't replace agents. Ovum believes anyway. Unified communication and contact centers are destined to merge. How quickly is really the question. Most vendors will tell you it's happening now. Most end users will tell you, or enterprises will tell you, it's in the future. Could be 2 or 3 years out. They're not ready to, if they have a contact center now, not ready to merge it with their unified communications platform if they have one, but they definitely see a vision in the future that's going to happen. Cloud contact centers are on track to merge with cloud marketing platforms to enhance a 360 view of the customer and drive proactivity. We truly believe that, as you saw in Mila's and my slides. And the voice channel is definitely not dead. His role is evolving. It's going to be changing. Agents themselves will be changing in profile, so people have to prepare for how they're going to hire, what they're going to look like in agents. But we're up for an exciting couple of 5 years going forward to see what changes in the marketplace. So that brings us to the question slide, so we'll open it up and turn it back to Eric and Beth, I believe, for Q&A.
Well, thank you, Ken and Tim. Some great information and insight from the week in Orlando. Really appreciate that. As you both have discussed, AI was definitely a leading topic at Enterprise Connect, and so it's no surprise then that we had a couple of questions come in on AI during this webinar. So let me kind of compress those into one. So, you know, Tim, you talk about AI being artificially inflated, and Ken, you talk about AI kind of really propelling improvement in in CC rather, contact center. So looking for your further kind of insight on this. Tim, when you think about artificial intelligence in the UC space, do you see it as less of an opportunity than in contact center space because sort of the use cases are less obvious? And then that said, what sort of kind of low-hanging use cases might you see for AI in UC, and then maybe some further out use cases?
Thank you, Beth. Yeah, at the moment, when I look at AI, a lot of it is chat-related in terms of team collaboration, where you can have a bot join a channel or a room. So simple things like calendar, looking for a spot in your calendar, those are some low-hanging fruit that we're seeing today. But where we need to get to is a point where my boss is doing a presentation and they know that there's an important piece of information that I'm part of the critical path, and therefore it prioritizes my work for the day. I think that's where the real productivity benefits are, but at the moment we're not really seeing evidence of that. At the moment it's predominantly chatbots, looking at ways in which you can look for space on a calendar. There's no meaningful insights or ways in which workflow can be prioritized based on who's dependent on you for different things. So I think there's ways in which there's certainly room for improvement, but I think we're probably 1 or 2 years out before that comes to the fore.
Okay. Let me throw one over to you, Ken, and this also is related to AI, specifically regarding the voice sense technology that you mentioned. And interestingly enough, I have an interview set up with them post-show as well, so I'm kind of glad to hear you mention them. this seems to kind of get into maybe that fuzzy area around how we use AI in an ethical way within companies. I mean, isn't there sort of what's sort of the danger of applying this sort of technology with biases creeping up and getting into companies into some murky water?
Sure, yeah, and I don't want to just pick on one company, but there are several companies that the word creepy sprung to mind as I was watching the demonstrations, and I think we're getting into that area. I agree with the questioner that we need to look at this much more ethically than we have in the past. There are some questions coming up. The easy answer is we need to ask people's information to do this. That would certainly hinder the prospects of a company like VoiceSense, in that they certainly want to ask people for their permission to check to see if they're lying. It would be a tough thing to do, or exaggerating, or whatever the case may be. I think those are questions that are yet to be answered. I know there are some groups in the industry looking at the ethics of AI, and I don't think we have all the answers yet, but I agree. Something we have to look at very closely. It started a couple of years ago when we started sort of looking over people's shoulders. The other thing I mentioned with the marketing platforms merging with contact centers, that brought another creepy kind of thing to mind when I watched, just because somebody gets on a website, then you're going to follow that person around for the next week, watching everything they text, every where they are located physically as they walk by a store. You might tell them the product they were looking for is in that store. Please go look at it. That would add creepiness to a lot of situations like that. So I don't have the answer, but I think it's something that people are working on, and we need to look at much more closely as we move forward in this business, because things could get creepy.
Tim, I'm wondering if you could sort of see the same creepiness to a degree with UC when we talk about Cisco's example of serving up information about participants in a meeting, or I'm sure it's others will get there too. Is that sort of an issue we need to be aware of on that side of the house as well?
Well, Amy was, thank you, Beth. Amy was really stressing the fact that all of this information is publicly available information. What they do is they crawl the web, gather everything from public sources, and pass it and use AI to serve it up in salient points. So arguably, anyone could do that anyway. I'll be interested to see how some of the European work councils view some of that stuff from an employee perspective. We may find that the technology is in advance of the regulations, which is oftentimes the case. So I guess we'll have to wait to see what the response is in market.
What I would add to that, Tim, is that being legal doesn't make it not creepy. So people may disagree with whether legal is the bar.
That's right. Absolutely.
That is true. Let's switch gears a little bit. You talk about UCaaS on one side, and we talk about team collaboration, and that was obviously a big, team collaboration is a continuing big theme coming out of Enterprise Connect. So somebody here wants to know, how long do you guys see it before, team collaboration suites really do just consume UCaaS?
Personally, I think we're seeing evidence of that today. If you look at Microsoft's move, they made a bold move to say that Skype for Business Server 2019 will just have cumulative updates, and it really is a way of staging a move to the cloud. We are seeing in Office 365, anyone signing up to a new Office 365 account that has less than 500 users, they are onboarded to Teams without any capability of moving to Skype for Business Server or Skype for Business Online rather. So I think we're seeing evidence of that now. You look at the capabilities of team collaboration. It's got the synchronous part, the voice, video, and meetings. The meetings are augmented by the processing power behind cognitive services to provide language translation, real-time captioning, those sorts of things. You've got integration with other apps and services, product management, CRM, Salesforce, Trello, all the Microsoft Office suite of products. I guess why wouldn't you want it would be an easier question to ask. I think we're pretty much seeing that move today. And in fact, most of the stands that I went around on the exhibit hall, they didn't really mention UCAS at all or UC. The buzzword is team collaboration, and there's a strong push straight towards that.
Yeah, and I would add to that, Beth, that I agree with Tim. It's starting today. When it's going to be mainstream and more than 50% of the world will be using or combining these things together, I'm not sure. It could be 5-7 years out there. But one thing I know when I'm looking at people asking about the contact center of the future, my vision of the contact center of the future, and this is just because I have blinders on for contact center on my job, but I really think the contact center of the future is not going to talk about agents inside a room or even just working for the contact center remotely. I think everybody in the enterprise can be considered an agent in the future. So even when the call comes in, AI is going to determine why that person's calling. That's the real job of AI, is not to answer the question, but to predict the next question. So when the question is coming in or the customer is calling, AI will be used to detect why that customer is calling. If they know he got a bill yesterday, it's probably about that bill, and get it to the right person. So although I think you would not see people like a stockbroker or somebody working in a billing department thinking of themselves as a contact center agent, I think we'll all be wearing contact center agents hats in the future, and that's really the culmination of UC and contact centers coming together, and everybody in the enterprise is on call for that call that's coming in, not just at one location, but globally for that matter.
Building on Ken's point there, we are seeing that front office, back office integration, but also extending that out across the digital supply chain. So imagine, if you will, you extending that out to partners and suppliers and customers and bringing those all together. So it's not just about intercompany communications, but it's intra-company and intra-organizational communications and collaboration. And team collaboration really is the platform to do that.
I agree.
So just to be clear then, Ken, you talked about this business communications platform. So it's not UC, it's not CC, it's a business communications platform. Team collaboration is essential to that then?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay.
That's the core of it.
You also talked about the kind of the melding of the contact center with CRM and marketing platforms. So that fits into this business communications platform as well. Can you explain that?
Yeah, what we're looking for in customer experience and customer engagement is really optimizing the system. And I think to optimize the system, we really do need that 360-degree view of the customer. In addition to that, you've got to be proactive. I enjoy getting prompts from a company saying, you might enjoy this, you might do that. Amazon, buy something on Amazon. People who bought this, and this, those kind of things. So I think all of this is going to come together. So our goal is to get the customer's questions answered, make the customer happy, et cetera, and keep the agent employed and wanting to work at the contact center for today anyway. So I think to the point where we can get these things working together, the CRM information, which we have pretty closely tied to the contact center today, but adding in that marketing platform kind of information really gets us to that goal of knowing as much as we can know about the customer, their likes, their dislikes, their desires, their future purchases, and their importance to the customer that are calling, the company they're calling. So, yeah, I see this business communications platform as optimizing our ability to make the customer happy and keep the agents happy in their jobs.
Okay. So I think we have time for maybe one more question, and this one hits on something that I don't think I heard either of you guys mention, and it's the whole idea of the mobile-first enterprise and that mobile customer experience. Do you have any takeaways on sort of what we're seeing mobile first wise, mobile experience wise, particularly out of the contact center with things like rich communication services and richer interfaces to the customer?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I didn't mention it is because that's assumed today. I mean, everything is mobile first. If you've got it working for your customers, they have to have the ability to access you via their mobile their mobile phone, their iPad, et cetera, when they're in an airport, wherever they are. So I've heard numbers like 50% of calls coming into contact centers today are coming from mobile devices. I tend to believe that, although I haven't checked it myself, but I think more and more going forward, there aren't many people that have landline phones anymore they're going to be calling on. They don't do the calls from home. They do it from wherever they are. So, I think we were talking about that stuff 2 years ago, and we take it for granted today. It's got to be. So that's where I am on that topic.
Well, we take it for granted. I'm sorry, just one follow-up question, and Tim, before you jump in. So we take it for granted that for text messaging, but what about rich text messaging?
Oh, rich text messaging?
Yeah.
We don't take that for granted today. I think I was talking about access to the contact center, access to the agent, et cetera. More and more companies are honing in on messaging. I'm sure we'll be there shortly. Messaging is becoming a hot topic. Companies are being formed around it. So I think we'll see us getting very close to that in the very near future. So I think that's included in our mobile first kind of idea with companies that are coming out with those products today.
Okay. And Tim, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You had one last comment?
No problem at all. Yeah, I think it's mobile first, but not mobile only. That's something that a lot of vendors are stressing. Although we are moving to a mobile world, there are people out there that don't possess smartphones. They do still possess landlines, and you've got to look at the lowest common denominators. So when you look at the integration with CPaaS platforms that allow you to integrate with WhatsApp chat, Apple Business Chat, Facebook messaging, but also allow you to push MMS and SMS messages to lowest common denominator, I think that we need to bear that in mind. But also that there are people on tablets and there are people from desktops that also need to have an experience. And of course, you can do more on a tablet and on a PC or a laptop because you have bigger screen real estate. So there are some things that are best suited to a mobile. There are other things that are best suited to a larger device.
Okay. Well, with that, we have hit the top of our hour. I wanted to remind all of our attendees that you can find us next year at Enterprise Connect 2020 back at the Gaylord, March 30th through April 2nd. And Tim and Ken, again, thanks for a great webinar. Any last advice for our attendees in terms of how they can stay up to date and current on this market?
Thank you, Beth. Yeah, so certainly reach out to us via LinkedIn. Follow us on Twitter. You can certainly subscribe to No Jitter and the No Digital community, the voice of Enterprise Connect. And of course, please talk to us about how Ovum can help you through our subscription services and consultancy to provide actionable insights to help you compete more effectively in the markets.
Well put, Tim.
And with that, I again want to thank our attendees and thank you, Tim and Ken and Eric.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thanks. Have a great day.